Lorkhan, the missing god, the trickster, and the divine timeshare salesman of the Elder Scrolls universe. Revered by some, hated on by others, and misunderstood by almost everyone else. If there's one thing we can agree on, it's that he's the spark that ignited the chaotic existence of the mortal world we know as Nirn. But was he a visionary creator, a cosmic anarchist, or just the dumbest god to ever exist? Let's dive into the lore, of Lorkhan, and see if we can make sense of his controversial legacy. To understand Lorkhan, we first need to understand the cosmic stage he walked onto, the Orbis. This is the space where all things began, a non-edible universal soup of order and chaos, where the Yet Ada, the original spirits, existed. Among these spirits, some chose to help create the world, those are your Aedra, and others decided not to, those are your Daedra. Lorkhan, however, lies somewhere in between. The Yet Ada existed in the nothingness before creation, exploring their limits and aspects, but to Lorkhan, this was not enough. Legend has it that Lorkhan had an idea. He sought the creation of a new plane of existence, one to serve as the ultimate test, Mundus. But this wasn't just a plain old plane like the prince's realms. This was the realm, a place where souls would experience life, death, and most importantly, taxes. Sounds great, right? Well, not everyone thought so. Some of the spirits were comfortable with their boring existence in the void, content with exploring their existence without having to worry about things like the government. Especially Akatosh, whose grandfather embodies the concept of stasis, which, much like old people, states that everything should stay the same forever. You see, creating a world isn't as easy as snapping your fingers and saying, "Let there be Nirn." It requires sacrifice, literal pieces of divine energy. And guess who didn't put that little detail in the PowerPoint presentation? Yep, Lorkhan. And Lorkhan didn't only neglect to mention that the creation of the mortal plane would require vast amounts of divine energy. The spirits that did give up their energy would eventually become mortal. These spirits are the Elnafey, the ancient ancestors to all mortal races. Convinced or coerced, it's a matter of debate. Lorkhan's divine heart, his very essence, was ripped out of him, Mortal Kombat style. Some say it was Trinamak, the warrior god, who delivered the final blow. Others say it was Ariel, the god of time, and the cosmological opposite of Lorkhan. Either way, Lorkhan's heart was taken and fired from Ariel's bow. The heart landed in the sea, creating what would become Red Mountain in Morrowind. And over the ages, Lorkhan's heart and its magical energy would fuel countless schemes, including the Dwemer's wacky antics and the Tribunal's ascension. Lorkhan may have been kicked off the divine stage, but his heart still played a lead role in shaping Tamriel's history. Lorkhan's legacy depends entirely on who's telling the story. To the Aedra and their followers, he's a cosmic con man who, nevertheless, created a world worth cherishing. To the Daedra, he's an ambitious but sloppy creator that failed to create a world under his control. In most of the elven cultures, particularly the Altmer, Lorkhan is seen as the ultimate villain. They blame him for trapping their ancestors in the mortal world, cutting them off from their divine heritage. To them, Nirn isn't a gift, it's a prison, and Lorkhan is the warden, who was killed for tricking the contractors who built the prison into becoming its prisoners. There's your weird but accurate metaphor. The Dark Elves, however, are an exception to the elven views, seeing Lorkhan as a positive example for change, which the Dunmer are not exactly strangers to. So how about humans? Some see Lorkhan as a hero, or at least they're more inclined to forgive him. Cultures like the Nords and Imperials view him as a martyr, a god who sacrificed himself to give them life. The Nords call him Shor, and they celebrate his defiance against the gods. For them, Lorkhan isn't the villain of the story, he's the underdog who stood up to the establishment. The Bretons and Redguards, however, don't see him quite so favorably, with the Bretons blaming him for everything from crop failure to a stubbed toe. And the Redguards kind of have their own thing going on when it comes to religion, but basically they believe Lorkhan still exists as a shadow of his former self, who attempts to block them from reaching their afterlife. This divide between perspectives fuels much of Tamriel's history. Wars have been fought over Lorkhan's legacy, and philosophies have been built around his actions. Whether you see him as a savior or a schemer, there's no denying his impact. Now let's talk about Chim. It's one of those esoteric concepts in the Elder Scrolls lore that makes you question whether the writers were brilliant or just screwing around. In short, Chim as the state of achieving enlightenment while still acknowledging the inherent falseness of existence. Think of it as the Elder Scrolls equivalent of realizing you're in the Matrix and then deciding to hang out in it for fun. Lorkhan is tied to Chim, not because he achieved it, but because his creation of Mundus set the stage for it. Also, some speculate that it was the end goal of Lorkhan's plan, and by creating a world full of strife, he gave mortals a way to rise beyond the level of the gods, and perhaps even beyond that. It's believed that one of the ways Chim is achieved is through violence, which may just be why Nirn is known as the Arena. That being said, whether Lorkhan intended on being hacked to pieces or not is still up for debate. Maybe he was playing 4D chess with the gods, or maybe he was just really bad at explaining his plan. Interestingly, Chim is also associated with figures like Vivek and Tiber Septim, both of whom allegedly obtained the mythical state of consciousness and then proceeded to do basically nothing with it. Another layer to Lorkhan's onion is his association with Padme, the primordial force of chaos. If Anu represents order and stasis, Padme is the agent of change and unpredictability. Lorkhan was born as the soul of Padme, embodying the idea that chaos isn't inherently evil, it's also necessary for growth and evolution. Lorkhan is one of the most complex figures in the Elder Scrolls. He's not a villain in the traditional sense, nor is he a straightforward hero. He's the catalyst, the wild card, a god who dared to dream of a new world. And whether you love him or hate him, you have to wonder, what the hell was he thinking? A popular fan theory is that some of the main heroes that we play as in the Elder Scrolls are Shezzarines. That is, people who are reincarnations of Shezzar, the imperial name for Lorkhan. Much like the way the Nerevarine is the reincarnation of Nerevar. Hey, the names are even similar, isn't that funny? With Lorkhan being the god of change, but also the missing god, it's thought that he's compelled to walk Nirn, usually during times of great need. Some believe the great heroes we play as may simply be avatars of the god of change himself. Although the implications of that get a lot more complicated when you consider that the Dragonborn is chosen by Akatosh, Lorkhan's, universal opposite. But hey, that just makes it cooler. Nobody said you couldn't be two flavors of demigod, I guess. Shezzarines aren't just limited to player characters, though. It's a common theory that some of the great rulers and heroes of Tamriel may have been Shezzarines. For example, Tiber Septim. He conquered all of Tamriel and founded one of the longest-lasting empires that Nirn had ever seen. If anyone's going to be a reincarnation of the god of change, it's going to be him. Along with Tiber, there's Pellinal Whitestrake, the divine crusader. He was already a demigod from birth and genocided like 1,000,000 elves, but despite his war crimes, he was also a great hero who helped the first human empire defeat their Ayleid overlords. Some think he may be a Shezzarine as well. In fact, a guy that once called Pellinal a Shezzarine mysteriously died by being smothered by moths. So take from that what you will. Either way, anytime you see a great hero in Tamriel, you can always see the influence of the god of change. So what do we make of Lorkhan? Is he the genius architect of existence, or the reckless instigator of divine dismemberment? Like most things in the Elder Scrolls, the answer depends on your perspective. To the Altmer, Lorkhan is the thief who stole their immortality. To the Nords, he's the warrior who gave them a chance to forge their own destiny. To the Dwemer, he's the heart of a machine that could rewrite reality. And to you, the player, he's a dead guy with a cool artifact. Maybe Lorkhan knew exactly what he was doing when he created Mundus. Maybe he didn't. Either way, his legacy is immortal, and despite what the legends say, he is too. So the next time you wander through Tamriel, look at the chaos, the beauty, and the contradictions of the world around you. That's Lorkhan's idea, and his curse. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the lore of the Elder Scrolls, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, stay curious.